course, we're going to take a closer look at that entire proposal from the BMC tomorrow night on the Urban Debate, but tonight we're focusing on the union budget of 2016. Now, if you remember last year, the budget completely missed the expectations of the real estate industry and of home buyers and gave the entire sector a sort of pass. The upcoming budget of 2016 is crucial for several reasons. If we are going to have housing for all, even if we're going to have housing for just some of us in the next few years, this budget is going to have to put housing on the top of its priority list. Ranging from an infrastructure status to the real estate sector and higher tax benefits for first-time buyers, the list is long and it's something that should be given top priority. Is housing top priority for our government? That's what we're discussing tonight. Joining me on the show, Niranjan Hiranadani, co-founder and managing director at the Hiranandani Group; Pranay, Vakil, chairman at Paron Consultancy India; Navin, Raheja, chairman and managing director at the Raheja Group. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Mr. Hiranandani, I'm going to start with you. Obviously, we had a long list last year. You and I spoke last year before the budget on what was expected from this government. We didn't get any of the things we were expecting. This year, at least, SOPs, larger tax breaks for first-time home buyers to encourage more people to own homes, to put more people in that bracket where they can own homes. Is that a basic necessity from the government?
I think, Faye, the whole idea is very simple. The Prime Minister has mandated that we need to get housing for all as early as possible. The balance amount of money is remaining for the persons who are earning average incomes, are finding it difficult to pay the EMIs or to be able to procure adequate amount of loans for the purposes of buying their projects. You know that land values have shot up the roof. In spite of everything that you may say, all the values have gone up in terms of land procurement, and the development charges and other taxes have also gone up over a period of time. So we do need some relief to the new house buyer. In order to do it, we had requested that it should be at least interest deduction on home loans, something which the Reserve Bank governor has also supported, because the NPA in the home loan segment is the lowest of all the loans given by any bank whatsoever in this country. So I think the individual home loan buyer needs to be supported by a lower interest rate, a less idea of doing where the RBI governor last time said that loans up to 30 lakhs will be supported. But as we all know, in the metro levels of Delhi, Mumbai and other places, that kind of figure doesn't look adequate enough for the purposes of supporting the home loan buyer. So I think what we really looking for from Mr. Jaitley is to support the project of the Honorable Prime Minister to give housing for all, and hence support these actions for the home buyer.
But Niranjan Hiranadani, I have this question for you. We've had several conversations about affordable housing, what constitutes affordable housing and what kind of encouragement it will need. But the truth is that the way the industry is stacked right now, the way the business is functioning, it's unlikely that even a tax benefit will lead to supply in that affordable housing segment. Now, in every city, affordable can be defined differently. I want to understand from you, what is it going to take for us to actually get supply in the lower than 1 CR bracket in a city like Mumbai? In Bangalore, that would be lower than 50 lakh rupees. In Pune, it might be lower than 40 lakh rupees. That's the bracket that needs the supply. That's the bracket that needs the homes. That's the ticket size. What do we need out of this budget at least in order to make that happen?
See, it's very clear. I think it's clear to the Prime Minister, it's clear to Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, and I think the actions have just started off the ground. For example, in the ease to doing business, he has mandated that the sanction of building plans, which normally nowadays takes 2 to 3 years, should be done within 30 to 60 days, maximum 60 days, and he is doing it under the Right to Services Act, which means the officers will not only be required to do, but if they do not do it, they would be questioned and be accountable for the same. So the speed of getting approvals is going to improve.
On the other hand,
it will make a huge difference, but over a period of time, because we need to bring new material into the market. So another 6 to 12 months before you will see a 10-15% reduction in prices of affordable homes, and that segment is a huge sector which we expect. Remember one thing, Mr. Jetli had assured us they will look at service tax. Now a service tax is applicable for those people who have to buy homes under construction and not got occupation certificate, but those rich people who can buy a house which is absolutely ready do not have to pay service tax, which is considered an unjust tax in the real estate business.
Okay.
So that 5% top of the line payment that we need to do is something which we hope will get out of the way.
Yeah. Let me bring in Navin, Raheja here. Navin, this is the other thing. One is of course service tax on under construction property, which is horribly unfair. The other thing that I personally think is unfair is when we talk about the deduction we receive on the interest that we pay, it only starts when I get possession, which means that, and just to bring this, break this up for our viewers, imagine if you bought a home and you're paying your pre-EMIs on the home and you're waiting for possession, you cannot claim a tax deduction on that pre-EMI until after you get a possession. Now in a market like this, when we're seeing delays happen across the board, you're waiting longer and longer for your tax benefit. Now Raheja, is there a cause or a case there perhaps for the finance minister to allow us a larger deduction on the interest that we're paying anyway on those homes?
Number one, whatever interest subsidy, whatever it was, exemptions were provided. They were provided, I think, in almost about 15 years ago, and from that time till now, they are still considering as if the people are living in the same income brackets, and as if the properties are also in the same bracket. We have come all the way. Now these, at least, the exemption should be at least for up to, if not, if you don't do a market correction, but at least you must take it to at least 5 lakhs now. So that should be considered by the Honorable Finance Minister. Apart from that, I think Niranjan has taken a lot of the things which are very, very practical and very much required. I would like to say that the Finance Minister must give infrastructure status to the sector. Unless that is given, the real estate developers all across country are actually stressed. And if you don't do any hand holding with them and don't give them respect either, because they are being, if they are not being able to deliver projects on time, it cannot be that every developer is like that. All the developers in the country cannot be bad people. They are actually being imposed so many problems on their head that they are, instead of doing construction, instead of focusing on quality, or instead of focusing on timelines, we are going into multiple issues regarding taxations, regarding clearances, regarding so many other things. We must be given a respectable status, and then the industry needs little hand-holding at this juncture when we know that sales are not happening, that things have gone wrong somewhere, and all these things need to be taken care of and looked into.
Alright, Pranay, Vakil, now you and I have had these discussions several times in the past as well. I want you to put this into perspective for my viewers. My viewers are average home buyers who are watching at home right now, who are thinking, okay, I don't know how an industry status for you or an infrastructure industry status for you is going to help me get a home. Put it into perspective for the normal home buyer. If the real estate industry gets the status that it's been asking for the several years now, how will that help me as someone who's going to buy a home?
Okay, let's address this on a holistic basis. We need to create more supply in order to bring down the price. And the price of a house that a home buyer is buying cannot and should not exceed his 5 years gross earning. Working back from there, or working with a criteria that whatever he is repaying to the banks by way of interest and the repayment of loan shall not exceed 50% of his take-home pay. Now, if you keep these two in mind and find the affordability levels, then what we want to do is to create more supply, make construction a little less expensive, open up new areas for development like the salt lands for affordable housing, open up new areas like what we have in Bombay, about a 1,000 acre of land on which the docklands are. And if the docks are opened up for development, which are not doing much in Bombay, I think this is what will create good supply situation. Now, let's not stop at that. We should also address the interest issue. We as real estate industry have seen highest volumes when the interest rate had fallen to 7.5% and 8%. We want to revisit those interest rates so that we are able to kind of make it more and more affordable for the common buyer to kind of do this, afford a house. So it is the interest, it is the land, it is the developer. If you make things easy for the developer, he will not build in or factor in all the uncertainties in his price. Today, almost 20-25% of the price that you are paying is because of the uncertainties that the developers are facing today. Uncertainty of getting approvals, uncertainty of the bank finance, uncertainty about some of the regulations, how they are being interpreted. All of this put together is only adding to cost. So, there is no one solution to making it affordable. Right. There are multiple solutions which we have to kind of put together to make it an affordable house for the common man.
I have this question now for anybody who wants to jump in and answer this, and this is what the average home buyer is going to say. Okay, great. If you get, let's assume that you put in the infrastructure, you put in the connectivity to the far-flung areas. So for a city like Mumbai, the suburbs that are coming up outside of Navi Mumbai, in an NCR region, all of your greater Noida, outside of Gurgaon, we'll put in great infrastructure, we'll put in great process, we'll clean up the system for you. Will the builders or the developers pass on that benefit? So, Mr. Navin, Raheja, if you're currently building for 1 crore rupees, will you launch the next project at perhaps 80 lakh rupees or 85 lakh rupees? Will you pass on that benefit of 10 or 15% to your buyer? Or are you going to turn around and say, hey, if I bring the prices down, people are going to think the market is crashing?
We have already done that because we wanted to make a correction to the level where the properties or all projects, they go into the pocket of the home buyer. Right now, since the interest rates are not coming down, even the prices are not coming down, the customers were not coming forward. So we took the bold step of bringing down the prices by at least 20 to 30% in some of our latest launches which we have done. And surprisingly, we have started getting very good response also. We are getting good booking also on those, by correcting the price. We are already getting good booking. So bringing down price is one factor, but we can bring down price only up to the level of our cost, actual cost. Now government also wants to do a hand holding. You need to bring down the interest rates. You need to bring down the EDC, infrastructure development charges. You need to bring down the taxation, on real estate.
Okay, fair
enough. If you look at on the taxation aspect, real estate is one where you got so many taxes. Every kind of tax, every department is taxing real estate.
All right, let me bring in Niranjan Hiranadani here. Mr. Hiranandani, the MOU that was signed with the Maharashtra government for affordable housing talks about the size of the homes that are being handed over, not the ticket size, not the price. Affordable is being defined by the size of the homes being handed over. My question is this: if the government manages to pass on all of those process in the next in a 1 month bracket, which is the agreement, you give us permissions quickly, we'll give you homes quickly, will that benefit finally wind up in the home buyer's court? How can we make sure that will happen? Because if I understand correctly, that MOU says the prices will be left up to market, market forces.
Whenever we had a controlled economy, there was a lot of black money taking place. By increasing the supply, the prices of the properties officially will come down. So that's the right strategy to do. So what the industry has decided along with the Chief Minister is to get the permissions as fast as possible and to push more volumes into the market. That will automatically bring down prices of the new construction into the marketplace. That is going to happen, especially in the extended suburbs or peripheral areas of cities. So I think it's a very good strategy of the Chief Minister of Maharashtra to bring in small size houses, because those are the ones which were not getting constructed earlier. So there was a move towards making larger and larger tenements, which was actually out of the reach of the common man. So I think pushing volumes, giving approvals quickly, reduction of taxes, reduction of interest rates, a combination of that will certainly bring affordability, especially if the volumes of the volume of supply is increasing in the marketplace. The answer is yes, it will bring down prices, but you need to do all these factors together in consortium, not one at a time. You can't say we are giving building permissions but we are going to overtax it, or you're going to give permission but you're making interest rates very high. So you really need to make a balance of that. For example, the municipal corporation, while giving permissions quickly, have increased the land under construction tax by almost 100%, including some development charges have been increased by 100%. So what they are actually giving benefit on one hand is being sought to be taken away by the other hand. That should not happen. So you can't have a combination of doing one thing and taking away one thing at the same time. We need to do a combination of factors all put together in order to win this war against higher pricing and less affordability.
Mr. Hiranandani, how many of those, I think it's a total of 9 lakh homes split between CREDAI, NAREDCO and the SRA that have been committed to the state government. Out of that entire list, how many of those are you building?
I don't remember exactly what we are building, but I would say about 8,000 houses.
8,000 houses. And if all of these things do come true, if the Chief Minister manages to deliver on all of those promises that he has made in that MOU, what sort of a difference in prices will we likely to see? If the supply you're talking about actually does hit the MMR market, what kind of a reduction in prices will we see in that bracket?
So let's look at it differently. Let us understand that if so much material comes into the market, what is the incremental supply that is taking place? First of all, we have to understand we are increasing the supply in the marketplace by 50-fold. 50 times the, not 50% increase, but 50-fold increase in the supply, especially in the peripheral areas of Mumbai metropolitan region and Vasai Virar region. So if you combine all this supply which you are talking, automatically this will result in an affordability segment, because nobody can then overprice any product just because he has a monopoly of supply at a particular point of time with permissions. So the market will then move down. But at the same time, as I said before, and I'm sorry I'm repeating it, government will have to look at the taxation rates which have been increased by the local authority and the permissions that have been given and the incremental FSI cost which is now being loaded in the market. As I said, you do need to put all these things in tandem to bring about the affordability quickly. But Faye, the answer is yes, you are going to be able to make a difference into the marketplace if you do this.
Alright, Pranay, Vakil, the other thing that bothers me about the way our tax benefits are stacked right now, most of the time in any of our big cities, if someone's buying a home, they're only able to do so because they've sold another home somewhere else. So normally what happens is, if I sell something and I'm buying another home, there's the element of capital gains tax. Now I can avoid capital gains tax if I buy more residential property, provided I do so in 3 years of making the sale. Now again, if the developer I have bought from has delayed possession past that 3-year deadline, I no longer have the advantage of avoiding capital gains tax. And I think a lot of these, what might have been archaic rules from our tax system need to be revisited, because the manner in which we are buying real estate today has changed completely. The manner in which we are making these investments has changed completely. So the fact that I pay service tax on under construction, the fact that I don't get a tax benefit until possession, and there's a 3-year lock-in on my short-term and my long-term capital gains tax avoidance, I think that needs to be relooked at completely. Do you think that this is something the finance minister should in fact consider?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is one section called section 54, under which if you make a reinvestment and hold on to it for 3 years, then the capital gains that you made on sale of your existing flat is fully exempt. Now, what happens if you took a wrong decision and you want to change your decision about having bought a particular apartment?
Sure.
There is no provision by which you can change your mind even if you make a mistake. That's number one. Number two, it is completely outside your control when the developer will deliver the house back to you. If he does not do it in 3 years, there are disputes which are created with the income tax department on whether that capital gains is allowable or not. Now, there are some decisions which have come out of the courts saying that if you make substantial payment to the developer, you can still claim that benefit. You don't really have to wait for the occupation certificate. But then you're fighting a war with the income tax department. Why do you want that? Why not have a clarity that if it is not due to your fault, you should still get that exemption? So there are a number of these issues which need to be addressed. What happens to the rental that you have to pay for that interim period of 3 years when your house is getting ready? Can you not set it off against the capital gains that you made by selling your existing house? Now these are also some of the issues which need to be addressed. So it's a section which came into force about 10 or 15 years back. It has never been looked at again, except that the ambit has been reducing of the section. First, they said that any house you sell, you can really invest into another house. Then they said that it has to be your only house in which you are kind of investing. So there are all kinds of restrictions which are placed on you, making it very, very narrow in interpretation and implementation for somebody to really claim that.
In fact, in the spirit of the tax regulations right now, for someone who's buying a second home that they're going to rent out for a rental income has a larger tax benefit than someone buying their first home that they're going to live in with their family. It just seems like a really unfair way to stack these regulations where you put the first-time home buyer at a disadvantage. Navin, Raheja, do you agree? Niranjan Hiranadani, do either of you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing into that, into capital gains tax. If you
go ahead, Navin, go ahead.
If you are selling one house and you want to, since your family has expanded and you want to buy, say you got 3 sons, you want to buy 3 properties in the same money, you cannot do that. Actually, you should be allowed to invest whatever you have been able to capitalize, that you should be able to invest in even more units if you want to give it to your sons or to your family, because now they are nuclear families also. So that should also be considered apart from this. And I'm absolutely with Niranjan ji also, because 3 years, all the projects across the country have delayed. Now within 3 years, if the positions are not coming forward, you must have a very clear policy. If the buyer, a consumer, has already invested and yet booked an apartment within the same period, if the possession goes delayed, the consumer should not be penalized, and there should be a clear-cut policy on that. So this is also to be considered. But I would like to give you one more information about NCR, because last week we have got, the government of Haryana has given beautiful 3 policies to increase the supply in the state of Haryana. I would like, if you can permit me, I can explain those policies also, that how they are going to benefit the consumer, the landowners, and probably the developers also.
Please go ahead.
Government of Haryana has given number one TDR policy, under which the entire master plan land has been unlocked. Now, like Maharashtra, like Mumbai, you can have transfer development rights for any lands which are not now licensed and lying as vacant pockets in Gurgaon, let's say Gurgaon or in Sona or in other master plan areas of Haryana. Now, those with that, government is going to get lot of surplus supply, because about 22% of the land is surrendered back to the government, and the developer or the landowners get a FAR. Because of this, earlier we used to have only 20% area which was for licensable and under group housing schemes, and balance area was controlled largely by Huda or by government or for plotted developments. Now the entire area can be unlocked and used as TDR. That means the supply has gone up manifold, and this is definitely going to decide that which developer is going to be a long-term winner, because you have to give good price, good quality and timely delivery if you want to be really winner in the market in Haryana or particularly in Gurgaon areas. Policy number 2 is about the metro corridors. The northern peripheral road in Gurgaon and southern peripheral road in Gurgaon, there the FAR has been enhanced and made almost double. Okay. In 500 meter belt, the FAR from 175 has gone to 350, and from 500 meters from the corner, from the edge of these roads till 800 meters, they have enhanced it from 175 to 250. Okay.
Mr. Raheja, I will bring in Mr. Hiranandani on this topic.
And work for densification.
I want to bring in Mr. Hiranandani on this topic. We were talking yesterday on this channel about the fact that the Naina area, which is outside of Navi Mumbai, is going to use the land pooling format with the farmers in that neighborhood to bring in more supply of land. But the thing that we're missing really in the city of Mumbai or the MMR region is infrastructure. If we are going to make affordable housing, if we want someone to live outside of, say, Thane or Navi Mumbai or Vasai Virar, buy those affordable homes and travel into the city, there isn't enough infrastructure, mass rapid transport coming up in order to make that possible. How much of a priority should that be in this year's budget from the finance minister's point of view, to say that, okay, we're going to put urban development on the top of the list, and not just that, actual execution of urban development, because we see an allocation made year after year. The question is, are we using that allocation and are we seeing any results?
But I want to get fund, actually this policy is for infrastructure fund only.
Mr. Raheja, one second, I just want to get Mr. Hiranandani in on this topic.
And they are going to collect lot of money.
Go ahead, Mr. Hiranandani.
To put it rightly, infrastructure has been having a backseat for a long period of time. We really were in a bad shape. Fortunately for us, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, has been focusing on the aspect of deficiency in infrastructure. 5 major projects in the Mumbai region are put on the forefront. The first one being the Cross Harbour Bridge, which means we will from South Bombay reach the MMR region within 30 minutes, which is going to be a real paradigm change. The second is looking at the metro. So the metros are going to be, 3 metros are going to be put in quickly. Fortunately, with the Prime Minister's visit to Japan, the funding in respect of the metro is also be put on the card. So that's the second thing. The third is the coastal road. If you look at all the of course the Navi Mumbai airport and then the Pinjal River project, which will bring 24/7 water to Mumbai. If you take a combination of all this, the forefront of all the discussions that we are hearing from the Chief Minister and the action pointed that he is doing is to put infrastructure into place quickly. The Sion-Panvel corridor, the road is already completed. All the junctions have been flyovered right from Sion up to Panvel into Naina area. So what we are seeing is an initiation of large infrastructure coming up in the next couple of years, for which all leads to this Panvel and Naina and the MMR region in this direction. If that is cohabited with doing affordable housing in a large measure and bringing about rationalization of taxes, as we have discussed earlier, a combination of this is going to see a real growth of affordable housing in this segment. Number two, with the JNPT port being expanded and the Delhi-Mumbai corridor also ending in this region, we are going to also see the economic drivers of this era, including IT development, which is going to take place. So it is my expectation that if what is proposed by Mr. Fadnavis is really getting into action very quickly, I think we will see a paradigm change in what we are going to get for infrastructure and affordable housing, but it means that they will have to take the steps both at the finance level, minister's level in the budget, and also at the state level by Mr. Devendra Fadnavis.
All right, we're going to have to take a very quick break, but we're going to come back and talk about other markets like Bangalore, Chennai, Pune, outside of the big Mumbai and Delhi. What are we going to need to make homes more accessible? That's on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the Urban Debate on Magic Breaks Now, India's first 24/7 property business news channel. We're talking about the union budget that will be announced on the 29th of this month. It's imperative this year that the finance minister puts housing on the top of his list because of the situation of the real estate market and the fact that a lot of regular white-collar employees in the 20-30% tax bracket are unable to buy homes in our big cities. What we did is we went out and spoke to citizens like you and me and found out what they expect and what they need from the budget. Listen in.
Rates have gone off the roof. It is just away from everyday, a middle class family of 2 or 3 or 4 cannot afford to buy a house now. Okay, so something of that sort.
Rates are shooting up, and we hope that the tax slab is increased from the present 2.5 to 4 lakhs, which is the expectation from this government right from when they actually came to power.
There's a lot of commuting issues that we face on a daily basis, so I feel that infrastructure development and commuting is one thing that this budget should take care of. That is a core issue.
For me, union budget, as a young generation, it's more related to startups. Like, we do have benefits right now, but we would like to see more benefits because India is considered as a software hub for the overall world. We would like to see more benefits on that point also.
People who are earning less have no scope of buying a home anymore, so they should be given some kind of facility where there is mid-budget homes and things like that, which are best in quality and good infrastructure but cost less.
Alright, still on the show with me, Niranjan Hiranadani, Pranay, Vakil and Navin, Raheja. Pranay, Vakil, we heard, those were home buyers talking to us about the fact that they feel the prices have shot through the roof. It's completely unaffordable for an average middle-class family of 3 or 4. There was one person there who said, I work really hard and I simply can't buy a house. Now, we can sit around here in our studios and talk about how the prices have actually corrected 10%, the market is weak, there's no sale. There is demand. And people just don't feel that any of that demand is catering to them. And this is my problem. We have a government that's focusing constantly on economically weaker sections and housing for them, on low-income housing. What about housing for the regular person who has a job, who pays taxes, who travels an hour and a half in any of our big cities? Where are the houses for them? When is the government going to put them on priority? This is the group of people who pay taxes out of their salaries. Put them on priority and make housing accessible for them. Where is the infrastructure? Where is the housing? Where are the tax benefits? All of this just seems fairly excited.
Actually, there are two things which came out of those conversations. One is affordability and the second is connectivity. Affordability is something which is a function of the income and the price of the house. So either the price of the house goes down or the income goes up, and that level is kind of found. The second is the connectivity, which is even more important. Because I have seen that in any of the cities, wherever the connectivity has come up, things are mushroomed around that road, around that railway, and a lot of affordable surpluses have come up. Supplies have come up in an affordable segment on those roads. Take Pune, for example. Where the Bombay-Pune road ends, there is a bypass which was developed at Dehu Road going forward, and there was nothing around that road. But look at it today. In 10 years' time, you have IT parks, you have so much of housing which is really affordable, and all of that has happened only because the connectivity has gone up. We talked about the Trans-Harbour Bridge. It is going to open an area which is 4.5 times the size of Mumbai, and it's more or less vacant. Can you imagine what it could do to the supply situation and the pricing? So yes, the emphasis to my mind is on the infrastructure, quickly to put it in place, that infrastructure, and also to encourage that infrastructure in integrated township development. Because when a developer takes on an integrated township development like Niranjan is doing, he is not only providing houses, but he is also providing a lot of infrastructure, the school, the roads, and all of that. Now, if that can be classified under Section 80IA as infrastructure, he would be really encouraged to kind of do that, because he will not be paying tax for a 10-year period. Now that is what is needed to be done. A combination of tax breaks, combination of connectivity, and making it more affordable through release of land, through lowering of taxes, lowering of interest rate, and managing the construction cost.
Right, Mr. Hiranandani, this is my demand personally from the Finance Minister to put the average tax-paying citizen, the salaried tax-paying citizen, and their housing on the top of his priority list. And we've actually listed it. It didn't take long on this show. In the first 10 minutes, we listed out the things that needed to be done. The other thing that I really think we should do as a country right now is to learn from the mistakes of Mumbai and Delhi. So when we're looking at cities like Bangalore, like Pune, like Hyderabad, Chennai, Kolkata, we need to learn from the mistakes we've made in Mumbai and Delhi in terms of urban planning, and make sure that we don't go down that road. Bangalore is racing down that road very, very quickly. If you were to list out things that can be, there is a scope obviously for the union budget, but if you were to list out things that can be fixed right now for markets in Pune, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, and some of these markets you're functioning in as well, what would those things be that can be halted at this point to make sure that we have healthy real estate markets where there's enough supply, there's enough infrastructure?
The first and foremost thing should be that the government should fix their eyes on infrastructure, and more infrastructure. If you do that, we just understood that even small roads which are constructed by the government can be a trigger point for the purposes of getting development, IT parks to be done, middle income, lower income housing to be created in extended areas comfortably. If we do it on a massive scale, I think the difference is going to be perceptible. But what we have to understand, and what the problem really is, that a part of this is with the state government, a part of it is with the central government. Apparently they both need to sit together and come to a conclusion that we need to do not a few battles from time to time or place to place, but to create a war We need to say that we are going to create a housing revolution, so to say, wherein we will attend to infrastructure, we'll attend to interest rates, we'll attend to rationalization of taxes, we'll see that the corridors of supply and other things are not vitiated. Like for instance, you had a sand shortage in between or a cement shortage earlier. We need to see that if we can take all these things together, then similar to what we did in the Green Revolution of Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri in 1972 and subsequent the various revolutions of the automobile, the telecom revolutions and industrial revolution after 1991 liberalization, if we focus on real estate and say, here is the revolution called the housing revolution, where all the parties, including private sector, of course, have to take up part of that responsibility. I think we will be able to win the war which Mr. Narendra Modi is talking about. But I don't see people working in consortium. Neither the government nor the state government is not working in consortium. A beginning has been made everywhere, both in the central government in terms of it and the state government. But what we really need is a proper coordination between the two so that the individual efforts are coordinated and produce perceptible, clear-cut results in the short run.
The other thing that we're focusing on really, and this comes back to urban development and planning, is the problem of pollution. Navin, Raheja, I know you feel very strongly about the environment. We saw yesterday and day before yesterday the central government talk about easier and cleaner environment laws for construction. But my question is also this: we've reached a point now where urban development has taken us to catastrophic levels of pollution in our cities. Is it time also that we start planning rapid transport in a manner where people stop using private cars, where there is actually an allocation in the union budget towards fighting pollution, towards fighting emissions, towards bringing down air pollution levels in our cities?
See, as far as you mentioned about simplification of the environment laws, let me tell one thing, that originally they had committed that we will be delegating these sanctioning powers of environment to the urban local bodies. But what has come out is, the exemption was there for 20,000 square meters. So that exemption of 20,000 square meters only has been delegated now to the urban local bodies. But the balance of the, for bigger projects, for up to 1,50,000 square meters and above, the status remains the same. So as such, I don't see there is a much simplification. It is only that several, instead of 10 points, 10 clauses under which they used to put under this clearance certificate which was given, now they have consolidated them into a lesser number of clauses. That is the only difference.
That's true. Our understanding of the
when it comes to
our understanding of the regulation is that
when it comes to the second thing which you said, the pollution.
Right.
The pollution part, I will say that we have to actually create infrastructure, elevated roads, there should be no red lights, and this all the cities, actually the traffic should be moving smoothly without getting into traffic jams. That is the most important thing to do as on date, and in this budget I would request that special provisions should be made at least for those cities which are over polluted. There the center should do some hand holding so that the flyovers, elevated roads, there is a holistic approach to the entire urban traffic planning once again, and the traffic can move freely. Number two, the parking areas, there is heterogeneous traffic all around in our bigger cities, metropolitan cities. Parkings are not organized, so there should be special, at least in the NCR, in Delhi, special provisions should be made for creation of more parking spaces so that people can park in those areas and walk to their work instead of clogging the roads, where these traffic jams happen.
I want to come back to the environment clearance. Just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second before we wrap up the show. Pranay, Vakil or Niranjan Hiranadani, from my understanding of the new regulations on environment clearances, all buildings will have to get clearances from the local authority provided they meet the different guidelines, and the guidelines are different based on the size of the complex that we're looking at. Pranay, Vakil, have you studied the new regulations? Is that true, or is Navin's interpretation of it true, where basically only the large ones will have to continue to go back to the central government?
Well, I'm not very sure, but from whatever I know, it's only the larger projects which will be subjected to these kind of clearances. Anything less than 25,000 square meters will not be required to go through with these clearances.
All right.
Niranjan?
So we had a conversation with the Union Minister of Environment just yesterday, and he told us that they are empowering the local body, the local authorities, which is basically the municipal corporations, to monitor these problems at the OC level, to monitor all compliance of 7 to 23, which is the regulation based on the size of the building, and the municipal corporation will then be able to hand over the nod and the OC. Niranjan Hiranadani, is that your reading of the new regulations as well? Let me remind our viewers that it hasn't come into force yet. We're expecting it to happen over the next 1 month. Niranjan, go ahead.
Yes, you are absolutely right. That is the proposal which has come from the Environmental Ministry. It was long overdue. We've been talking about it for the last 3 years. The fact is that most of the conditions, whether they are put in by the Fire Act, for the National Building Code, or now the Environmental Ministry, are all controlled by the local planning authorities, so to say, for the purposes of using the implementation of the same. We have been proposing that the same should happen in respect of all housing projects, especially in urban areas, if they follow the development plan or the development control regulations, and whatever are the conditions which are there, similar to what is analogous to fire conditions in the fire NOCs, as well as height conditions in terms of taller buildings, in terms of safety, security and structures, should also be followed for all residential buildings irrespective of the size. However, the best which has happened up till now is that the area has been increased, proposed to be increased, but not actually implementation. Our view is that is even wrong. We should, in all areas which come under regional plan areas or development plan areas or local authorities, such permission should not be required and should be delegated to local levels, because it's just dilatory, and they are actually, the committees are not adding on any great story to improve the environment by putting conditions and taking extraordinary time to give such permissions.
Quick question back to you, Niranjan Hiranadani. Are the local authorities in a position to handle the new responsibility?
Of course they are. We handle fire, we handle height, we handle roads, we handle IT, we handle commercial, we handle retail, we handle underground metro trains. So why can't we handle environment? Of course we are capable of doing it. The question is only that, we need to put up broad guidelines and put down codes under which we have to function. But remember one thing, what has gone wrong is that the government has disowned responsibility to provide infrastructure. The British, when they came to India, in Mumbai, they did the Western Railway, the Central Railway and the harbour lines more than 100 years ago. While after 65 years of independence, we are now going for a metro which should have been at least 500 to 1,000 kilometers of underground in Mumbai. But we forgot about it, we delayed it, and that is the cause for all these problems. We hope that we'll be able to do that fast enough and catch up with the deficiency of 65 years of not providing mass transport.
Alright, right, we've run out of time on the show, but I want to give you a quick recap if you're watching at home. This budget, like I said, is really important for the home buyer, and these are the things you should be watching out for. What we need right now are bigger tax incentives for first-time home buyers, a revision of the quantum of tax incentives on home loans in general, because it's far too small and it has absolutely no bearing on the kind of EMIs we're paying every year. We pay EMIs of upwards of 12 lakh rupees, and our tax deduction is an abysmal 3.5 lakh rupees right now. There's zero comparison between the two. The third thing that we need from the government is a complete focus on urban infrastructure. We need urban infrastructure to connect us in a high-speed sort of way to all of our peripheral neighborhoods, so we can buy homes outside of our cities, which is within the bracket of affordability, and travel into the cities to work, which is something that's happened in every big city across the world. We have not really managed to do so in India. That's a focus that we need. An industry status for the real estate industry will help. Infrastructure status for large townships will help even more. These are the things we're going to be watching out for during the budget when it's announced on the 29th. And on this channel, we're focusing purely on your housing. So if you have any questions at all, we'll be right here in the run-up to the budget and on budget day with the biggest names of analysts and real estate builders to answer your questions. So feel free to get in touch with us if you have any question at all about buying a home. Remember, that's what this channel is here for. That's a wrap on Urban Debate. I want to thank all three of my guests for joining me on the show this evening. I'd like to thank you for watching. Stay with Magic Bricks now for more news and updates.